Laura, if you're on and would like to read Our Lady's bio, go for it. It's not showing that Laura has any audio, so I will go ahead and read the bio for you. Welcome everybody to engaging and retaining high-level students in a multi-level classroom. We have from the HSE Tri-C Options team. It's comprised of Program Manager Lana Benton, who's been with Tri-C Ohio Options for over 20 years and guides the team as an experienced educational leader. She has a Master's of Arts in Education, Leadership in Higher Ed from Baldwin-Wallace University. Corey Lupton works full-time as a supersonic wind tunnel operator and facilities engineer at NASA's Glenn Research Center in Cleveland. She uses this background to provide optimum math instruction to our higher level students. Megan Richmond has a background in serving Lorain County Children's Services as an education liaison. She has a teaching degree and has worked as a middle school teacher using her educational background to instruct HSE students in science. Latanya Shazer recently resigned as a K-8 principal to teach adult learners full-time. She leads RLA SS instruction with a master's in educational leadership and literacy. Each HSE team member has a passion for researching, learning, and creating innovative strategies to engage adult learners, helping them to achieve success, such as the goal of the HSE program.
Hi, thanks for joining us. I'm Lana. Today we're going to share with you a method that we're using at the Tri-C Ohio Options, formerly Aspire, to engage and retain our high-level students, level 4, 5, and 6. First, can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up?
We can.
Wonderful. In 2013, Tri-C Able created a fast track class. We were able back then to focus on targeting the skills and testing strategies for our high-level students who needed to complete the test before we turned over to 2014 GED exam. This was very successful, so we decided to continue class at Tri-C East and Metro campus. Due to space, we were never able to offer the class program-wide. Fast track could never be offered throughout the entire program. And though the high-level students really liked the idea, when you're traveling from the west side of Cleveland or the far east side to campus, it can be a challenge for some of our students. But in this remote setting, all the classes has suddenly gone from something leveled because a lot of the classes, especially on campus, were leveled. So from level to all of a sudden, all multi-level classes. We knew that we needed, that we tend to lose. Sometimes we lose our NRS level 4, 5, and 6 students when they sit in multi-level classes, and there seems to be a lot more of the lower, the intermediate level students. And we didn't want this to happen. So we decided to do something different. So, okay, changing. Sorry, everyone. Christine, are you able to help with the, because I am not.
It's not changing for you?
It's not changing for me.
Is it changing on your screen, just not on ours?
Not at all. Which has happened before. Sorry, everyone. Thanks for your patience.
Can you stop share and try sharing again?
Yes, I will do that. Thank you.
That should fix it.
Okay, this is different. Of course, here we go.
There it goes.
Just froze a little bit. Thanks, everybody. So basically, I presented to the idea to the team of using this remote setting to really offer special virtual sessions for our NRS level 4, 5, and 6 students. Using the remote setting, we could offer these sessions to our entire program-wide, to all of our students. So the HSE Sessions focuses on skills and strategies that are needed to pass the math, science, reading, language arts, and social studies on the official HSE exams. The students would have the opportunity to remain with their instructor, but get extra support. They would get extra support from instructors, such as the instructors you're going to meet today in our session, who would concentrate on preparing them for the key areas on the HS exam. So I reached out to these ladies and told them what we wanted to do. And right away they jumped in, they were all on board, and they created the curriculum for the session that they would teach. And again, you're going to hear from them today about that. So we basically decided to pull this together, and we came up with the name. We had several names before, but we came up with the name HSE Sessions. And with that, we decided to pilot it this summer, program-wide. So we created a flyer, and then we actually put these HSE sessions on our Ohio options online registration for all of the students to sign up. So the students sign up, the information is populated into an Excel spreadsheet that we use as our HSE Sessions roster. I sent this to the instructors, and they engage each of the students who register. They reach out by email, introduce themselves, and help the students to engage and transition to the session. The instructors, they take attendance, they send the information to our AbleLink coordinator. It was successful this summer, and so we decided to run in the fall. So the HSE sessions focus on goals and assessments, curriculum engagement, excuse me, ladies, and retention. So what you can see here are just exactly what we're focusing on. We want to be data driven. We want our students to understand that assessments drive. And so what we see on their TABE diagnostic report, what we see on their, many of them have taken parts of the official HSE exam. The instructors use that score report, again, to help them to create their goals, and they create assessments to measure where the students are at. And then the curriculum, each of the instructors focus on the content area that would be needed to really give the students the skills and the testing strategies needed to pass each of the sections of the HSE exams. At some later point, we did, of course, share this PowerPoint presentation, as well as the HSE Ready Guide. We're not going to show that now because of time, but the HSE Ready Guide gives the details of the curriculum. And then engagement, we knew that it was very important to have small sessions because they were already in a class, their homeroom with their instructor. And we wanted this to be like teleconferencing, where they had the opportunity to pull out, really be engaged, ask those questions, not be embarrassed, to ask anything. And we knew it was important to have multiple sessions because we knew that our high level students, they're not all available in the morning or in the evening. And so we focused on intentionally, we created these HSE sessions to be offered at different times. So a student can, math, for example, is offered in the morning and is also offered in the evening. Same with every subject. The teachers work effortlessly, very hard to use emails and video recording sessions. The instructor, they understand the importance of really engaging the students in the beginning, all throughout the sessions. Also staying in touch with the student's homeroom instructor. All of these pieces, the different assignments that they give, all of the things that they're doing here is so that they'll be able to focus, alleviate the pressure, and just very support the students. So that's the purpose of the HSE sessions. That's the focus, to help the high level 4, 5, and 6 students get extra support to prepare for the HSE exams. And now you'll hear from, and of course here, I apologize. And so here's our goals and our assessments. And again, these are the same things that I've already shared. One-on-one small group instruction, accountability partners is very important. Bottom line, if they could have done this by now, they would have. So it's very important that they are held accountable, not only by the instructor who's leading the HSE session, but partnering them up with other classmates. Again, as I shared, data-driven. We use the DRC TABE. We use the GED Practice Test Ready report. We offer all of the students the official practice test vouchers, as well as our program has Ratner scholarships. So for the part that the voucher does not cover, our Ratner scholarship will cover for our students. So when it's all finished, and if they allow us to help them on this journey, when they're finished, they're going to get the extra support that they need, and will have full payment of their HSE exam. So now you're going to hear from one of our teachers as she presents to you her HSE sessions.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Corey Lupton. First off, I'd like to thank my co-instructors. Watching them and how they engage with their classes has really upped my game and made my teaching skills that much better. So I really appreciate you ladies, and thank you so much for being part of this. So I teach the math portion of the HSE sessions, and I try to simulate the GED test with I use Google software, and so I can simulate multiple choice, drop down, and drag and drop scenarios, as well as in my personal class of going over the extended response essay and short response questions. But in math, of course, 55% is algebraic problem solving. So they really need to up their, I call it minor math. I try not to make it say that it's elementary or simple, because people get really dejected if they always ask, well, what grade would I have learned this in? And if I tell them 3rd or 4th grade, they start to feel really bad about it. So I just say these are just building blocks to getting something better and being more advanced. And then, of course, the quantitative problem solving is about 45% of the class. So I try to make them understand that, all these building blocks, fractions are exceptionally challenging. We do use them every day in our day-to-day lives, but we don't even recognize that we're doing it. So when it gets more complex, a lot of my students feel overwhelmed by it. I try to then get right into geometry, because these are spatial relation concepts that are really kind of beyond a lot of my students. Math is logic, and as we know, most people we know aren't particularly logical. And so that's why I think this is kind of challenging. And of course, algebra, where the engineers I work with at NASA normally joke around saying, well, here's another day gone by and I haven't used algebra, as a joke, because that's not really true in our world, but it isn't true in anyone else's world. We're always trying to find an unknown quantity. Next slide, please.
Sorry, it's freezing up again.
That's all right.
So I'm going to have to stop sharing. I apologize. Of course, it never happens when you practice.
Should have recorded the practice.
Mm-hmm. Let's just give it some time. There we go.
Great. Thanks, Lana.
You're welcome.
Okay, so like I said, I use Google products. so I have a Google Classroom. This is where my students get their day-to-day homework, and that I can monitor that in a less than formal setting, you know, not in any official capacity. And then I quiz them in my Google Classroom, you know, to assess how far along they've come, especially in math. Um, my live session classes are taught on WebEx, which I think is a really great format. I'm quite used to it, as opposed to Zoom or Teams. I think it fits the needs for my class. I also meet with my students one-on-one for tutoring sessions, and also sometimes they just need to talk to somebody. So I've opened it up for those kind of instances as well. I have a YouTube channel so that when they're trying to do the homework 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they can reference back to my YouTube channel, and they can see the math in real time on the problems that they're actually working on. And so this helps them a lot. The official format that I kind of use is the Essential Education software, or as it's known, GED Academy. And so this has given us the structure of where they should be, where they are, and where they're going, so they can see the full battery of all the information that they're supposed to have in every subject. And then I try to change it up and make it more fun by having you know, games and competitions in the formats of Kahoot, Quizlet, or quizzes, which are pretty common for most instructors. They have funny memes and things like that to break it up just a little bit. When I first engage with my students, my initial contact is through email, kind of in a formal setting, so that they get all my information. And then I follow up with a text message so that they know that they can reach me by text message, which is usually the best way to get a hold of me. I you know, also include in that a weekly email of links to, of course, the platforms in which they're supposed to engage in their you know, lessons. But then also we have an incredible transitions team that gives our students access to social services and any job links and anything to make their life a little easier so that they can continue their studies. I also like to include inspirational passages from various sources, that I'm always looking for something that helps me through the day, and then I hope it helps my students. So I particularly like to use quotes and you know, just nice thoughts for the day. And I always meet each student virtually so that we can set their goals and get them to the point of where whatever was keeping them from getting their high school equivalency, let's work on whatever that is so that they can move forward. And of course, I almost have like conferences with them to progress test them and check their personal progress to see if they can stay on with their journey. And then for the official progress testing, which is TABE 11 and 12, I also do that via WebEx. Next slide, please. So to try to keep my students, which retention is difficult for any GED or ESL instructor, it's really, really difficult to keep your students engaged and coming back. Adult learners have a lot of personal issues that would keep them from their education. So one of the things that we have that's an extraordinary tool through Cuyahoga Community College is the ALEX software, which is online math learning. This helps not only with preparing for the GED, but will help them prepare for the entrance exam in math for, say, a community college like Tri-C, or even, you know, a 4-year university that all have a math entrance exam that attached to it. So it's important that they keep these skills up, and this is something that our program can provide as well. So I try to change up the format. So any of my students that have been with me for multiple semesters won't really see the same assignments over and over again. I try to change it often so that they feel like they're progressing and they're not just starting over again. I time the assignments because I want to not only make them feel a little competitive against their peers, but also competitive against themselves to try to get a personal best or a better time on their score, as well as more correct answers. I try to incentivize my learning. Normally this works better in a face-to-face classroom, but my students that are particularly engaged or have really kept up with their goals, I get Kohl's Cash from whenever I shop at Kohl's, and Kohl's sells GED calculators. So I use my Kohl's Cash to purchase GED calculators, and if they do particularly well, it's the point of where I'm having to mail them, which is fine. But so they would get a GED calculator, or they'll get a gift card for a local restaurant or some type of local store that they can use, just to make it more fun. So how do my students receive all this information? Because they're adult learners, they want a personal appeal. They really want to feel validated that what they're doing is worth the effort. I find most students go, maybe it's not even worth my effort. I'm older than 18, and now I don't feel like it's even worth it. And I try to show them how their pay could potentially go up exponentially, and that having a personal success will lead to more personal success. So I try to validate those feelings. Many of my students, I call them their demons, that whatever demon kept them from getting that high school equivalency is still in existence, and we're going to have to work on that. So a lot of them have a lot of personal issues. A lot of my students are not tech savvy, so this is helping them with getting through all the GED formats and use of the GED calculator. They need help with test taking skills, time management. Typing is a big one, being a quick typist, and best guesses on multiple choice questions. I try to help my students in their personal lives as well as in their school realm of priority setting, is that some things just take precedence over other things, and you have to pay attention to those. And of course, I'm always trying to help my students go to the next goal, that once you get your high school equivalency, now what? Now where are we going? What's the next big hurdle that we're going to challenge ourselves with? So those are all the things that I try to help my students with. And thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Megan Richmond, and I am the science and math teacher, instructor for the HSE program for Tri-C. And when Lana came to me in the summer with this idea, I jumped on it. I always felt there was a need for us to focus in on our high-level students, 4, 5, and 6 from the TABE test, so we don't lose them, and we can focus them on actually passing that GED test and helping them achieve those goals. So when this opportunity came to me, I was very excited. So the HSE students, what they need to know is I try to teach this class in a very data-driven way of teaching. They understand that this is a class that is helping them pass the GED test. They are specifically taking this class for that reason. So we focus a lot on the test. We understand there's 35 questions, 90 minutes. Science is a test, and this GED test is a reading comprehension test. There's not a lot of science prior knowledge that you need to know. You need to know and have really good reading skills. So we drill in reading for meaning. We practice brief science passages, and they need to read for meaning. What is the question? Having them teach them to read what the question is asking them first before they read the reading passage. Just some test taking tips for them to focus on, and not just the GED test, but any skill, any test that they take afterwards. So I try to talk a lot about the GED test, the test taking skills, and then, for example, the how to take the test. When you go through that GED test for the first time, a lot of the students didn't even understand that there are 2 slides and 2 tabs to the reading passage, and they read the one passage and they don't know to click on the second passage, and there's a whole nother screen of reading that they need to complete. So helping them understand how to navigate the tabs. I know that when we go on the computer, the upper left-hand button for the back arrow is where we always navigate, but we understand that the GED test, it's on actually on the bottom of the screen for the next button, the next, that click on the next to get your next question. Just simple little tips so that when they go in to take the test, they feel more confident because they've seen the test, they've gone through it, and they know how to do a practice. Content, we do a lot on content. We know that life science is 40%, physical science is 40%, earth and space is 20%. It seems like there's certain concepts that keep repeating on the GED test that I make sure I cover, such as designing an experiment and the scientific method with an independent and dependent variables. Punnett squares always seems to be popping up with dominant and recessive genes and hereditary. States of matter and laws of motion with velocity, that also couples into understanding that there will be some math on the science GED test. So having them know that they might come across some math problems, knowing where the calculator button is on the screen. So when they do have that math question, they can access the calculator, and that always gives them a sense of security too. And then I also think important in science is vocabulary. Like I said, it's a strong reading test, but there's a lot of vocabulary and big words that they need to feel comfortable with. So in my lessons, I try to drill in vocabulary for the science portion. And then finally, we cover a lot of visual literacy in regards to charts and graphs and tables. On the test, you'll have a chart or a graph, and you'll have possibly 3 questions from that one chart and graph. So there's a lot of bang for your buck, if you will, in visual literacy for the students. So I spend a lot of time on reading graphs, reading charts, and getting all of those questions driven from that one chart. So having them, be prepared in that regard. And like Lana said, our students know that this is a special high-level class and that they qualify based on their TABE scores, level 4, 5, and 6, for a Ratner scholarship. So that is a goal that they are always striving for, is that scholarship, and that Ratner scholarships allows them to take a practice GED test. And then again, it gives us another chance to take a look at the test, to get those practice scores, to review that practice ready report with the student on a one-on-one basis, and review what they've missed and how we can help them and improve. Next slide, please. So student engagement, this is a big one for me. Like Lana had mentioned, when this opportunity to teach a high-level, almost like a fast-track class, I got excited because I teach in a satellite location in West Cleveland, in Lakewood, and for our students to travel to main campus was always kind of daunting for them, and giving them this opportunity to do this virtually really was a great opportunity, and I was excited to do that. Knowing that it's multi-level and they get a chance to take this class through registration. So when they register for our Tri-C program, HSE program, we can flag them with level 4, 5, and 6. We can also get them engaged in this opportunity by teacher references. So I feel like us teachers really know our students best. We can look at a score and the score says, yep, they qualify, but talking to the teachers and getting those references is super important to me. Us teachers know how they learn, what are they're slow in or need reinforcement. So teacher reference is a great part of this program. And then also when we give the post-test to the TABE, then if any student increases from a level 3 to a level 4, this is an opportunity for them to then dive into this more specific learning and engaging those high-level students that hit that qualification at 4, 5, and 6 level. So the virtual opportunity opened a lot of doors for our students, and we took the pandemic and the lemons that was created by this, and it forced us to go virtual, and it forced us to make lemonades out of this opportunity. So what I do, how I support my learners and keep them engaged is student-centered learning. So they know that each class and each lesson is recorded. So if they are just not on it that day and they are struggling, they know that they can go back and watch that recording of that class a second or a third time. That is a security for them, that it's not, if they didn't catch it the first time, they can re-watch it and hopefully catch it a second or third time. Every class that I teach, I make sure my lessons include a video for that reason. So if I'm speaking and lecturing, there also is a video, a second person, if you will, teaching and lecturing and showing a different way that can couple my teaching. So those videos I think are great. Handouts and notes that I send through them. So they get my PowerPoint presentation that includes the handout and notes. So if they aren't writing down everything that I am saying, or they miss something, they know that they can go back, and all of the notes that I have for them are in that PowerPoint presentation. And then of course they get their homework. So the coursework can be personalized for each student's academic and personal needs. This again goes back to that GED practice test. So I can then give them those exact personal needs based on their practice test review and what questions they missed, and we can go through those exact questions. Video conferencing and face-to-face interaction, I find, is one of the best benefits here in this virtual world with me teaching. They know that I am just a phone call away, a video conferencing or a Zoom away, that I am always there for them to reach me. I have my phone on my hip like most of us do, and I found that the Google Voice app that I have used gives them an access to my phone without giving my personal phone number to them. So my Google Voice, they have a work phone number that goes to my cell. So they know they can text me, they can call me, and it goes through my phone, so I can always kind of help them and be there, and I'm accessible to them. So we're all in this together. They know I'm here for them, and I'm just a phone call away. I make sure to reiterate that after each lesson. Building a digital library for students to access content-specific material is again another really great opportunity, having this virtual platform that we're in. A digital library, each student is on their own timeline when they are actually going to pass and take this GED test. So I try to teach them how to create a digital library, that each lesson that I send them, each homework that I send them, they can create a folder. So I show them how to create a folder in their emails, so they can pull up the folder from myself and relearn and re-engage in those homework lessons or homework that it's always just within their computer and within their notes, if you will, to pull up that lesson again, and all of the YouTube clips and the handouts and the PowerPoints to help them, relearn that topic if they need to, and especially closer to taking that test. And then also with this digital library, I find that it's super important to send PDFs to my students, because a lot of our students probably have some type of learning disability or unidentified learning disability, or just a learning, it helps, an extra learning tool through these PDFs with read aloud, text to speech, predictive spelling. So having digital resources for extra, learning disabilities or learning challenges is also a great resource that I want our students to engage. And then piggybacking on that, there's different learning styles. So the having this platform and the different learning styles, actually, if you can, next slide, I'll talk about my learning styles. So in the curriculum, I use a lot of YouTube clips, like I said, with 3D animation. So for example, here's a link to a cell, and you can dive into this cell and see the 3D animation of the cell, so you can really get engaged into that cell for the students. So it's not just a picture, but you are floating through that cell, and it's super cool and a great opportunity because we are digital. We do learning style inventories in the beginning on an intake level of when students enter the classroom. And students understand, or I help them understand, if they're a visual learner, if they're an auditory learner, or a tactile learner. So my curriculum, I make sure that I hit all of those types of learning styles in my lesson. And visually, having 3D animation YouTube clips is great. Having a lot of PowerPoint with bullets, helping them identify these are the main topics in their notes that they'd have to look at. These are the vocabulary words, so bullet structures. Auditory, so they can hear the lesson, they can have a text to speech, they can watch me and re-record that lesson, so they can auditory learn that lesson a second time. And then tactile, them navigating through the internet, navigating on the computer, clicking on different links that I provide them, keeping them engaged if they're a tactile learner is also a great need. So the curriculum, having also, just because we are digital, this link I included is a virtual field trip. Students then have access through NASA space station, planetariums and museums around the world. So because we are locked in our houses and homes, we can visually go on these field trips, if you will. So this is a link to, I thought, a cool site that I wanted to share with virtual field trips. Next slide, please. And retention. So retention gives the students an opportunity to practice the skills learned, facilitate breakout rooms or video conferencing one-on-one, peer discussion. So if one student got it in a certain way, they can actually take over the class and talk. That it's a community that we're building. And watching demonstrations of each lesson is a great way to build that retention. Ways to increase retention, gaining the students' attention through all of these visual opportunities through the digital platform that we're in. Generate interest in the topics, such as the field trips, and having, I've watched my own children, and they're on their Zooms because we're all home learning virtually. And the teachers that really show a lot of interest in the topic and show a lot of their voice and inflection in the voice, get them excited about learning this skill. And it's not just the test, but it's really a cool idea. Students pick up on that energy that the teacher creates through this odd way that we're teaching to a camera. So I think it's important to use that interest and gauge those students with some excitement and the motivation of learning. We're all in this together. They see my children running back and forth. Their children are in their houses. This is a difficult way to learn, but if we do this together, knowing that we're just doing the best we can for that day, and we have good days and bad days, it's really it helps build that team. We're on a team. We're doing this, and it's nice. I've really enjoyed teaching in this virtual world. So thank you. Thank you, Lana.
Want to make sure you guys can hear me. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay. All right, great. So good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I am Latanya Shazer, and I teach the reading language arts and social studies content areas for our HSE students in the evenings. And it's been so rewarding. We have so much fun, such a good time. So some things that I focus in on, again, is exposing HSE students to the question types that they're going to see on the actual GED test, because I want them to have that exposure. I don't want them to see a question and then freeze up. So my goal is always, and what I always tell them is, don't let this test intimidate you. Go in and intimidate the test. So key areas that reading language arts and social studies focus in on are reading and writing and social studies concepts, mathematical reasoning and social studies, which are basically charts and graphs that they'll see. The concepts for social studies, civics and government are 50% of the test. So we definitely take our time to learn those things. That's right, Daryl. And then these are the key focus areas as well for reading language arts and social studies: analyzing and creating text features. So we analyze a lot of various texts. So for example, poetry, quotes are my favorite. Applying social studies concepts. So we may be talking about government, we may be talking about leadership, rulers, dictatorship, democracy, those things. Comparing differing sets of ideas. So for me, I love debate. So you'll see that number 4 is evaluate the assumptions and implications inherent in differing positions. So 3 and 4 kind of work together because you're comparing different sets of ideas. So I want to take a quick pause since we have a little bit of time, to engage you all. So one of my most recent debates with my HSE students is, should human microchipping in Russia, should it be required or optional? So I know you're thinking, what is human microchipping? So there's a microchip like the size of a grain of rice that gets inserted in your hand. And in Russia, this is like a real thing. This is a true story. In Russia, it's used pretty much as money. So people can go and you just scan the microchip on your hand and go. That's it. So I'm going to ask you guys real quick, just take a quick pause. All of my colleagues that are here with me, should microchipping in Russia, should it be required or, so just a quick poll, should it be required or optional? So go ahead and just put in the chat what you think. Let's debate. Let's get to it. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of optionals. A lot of optionals. Yeah, so, we're humans. We should have human rights. We should have the right to decide if we want a microchip in our hand or not. It should not be mandatory or required. Choices, choices, choices. Yes. So I'm seeing in the chat with you guys, yes, it should definitely be a choice. And so what I typically do with students, thank you for engaging in that debate with me. So what happens with my HSE students is I'll say, can you find text evidence to support that? And so I give them 5 minutes to just go into a new tab and research microchipping to find some pros and cons. And then they'd share their screens, we debate a little bit, and why is this important, right? So we all know that on the writing portion of the GED test, that it's always argumentative essay, always. It's always showing two sides of a coin. And what our students' job would be when they're taking the test is to decide which argument has the best supporting details or the strongest support through text. And so this debating back and forth and finding text to say, no, this is evidence that, yes, we should do, microchipping should be required, or no, it should be optional. It kind of gives them that practice with going and finding the text evidence to support their position. So really cool. If you can't tell, debating is one of my favorites. Next slide, please, Lana. So use of multiple platforms when I'm working with my students, my HSE students on social studies or reading language arts. Again, this is our higher level students. And so their analysis should be very detailed. And if it's not, this is where I support them. I use movie clips where we unpack what just happened in this movie, and I always connect it to a social studies topic or reading language arts topic if we're looking at point of view, or if we're looking at, as I mentioned, human rights, which is what we've been focusing in on, social justice. So I use movie clips, videos, newspaper articles. I heard my other colleagues say that they use YouTube. What I love about using YouTube videos is it's self-paced. So if you miss something, you can always go back and rewind. Or if you feel like, I don't need to see this part, fast forward. You can take notes. So I am a big user and a big fan of YouTube as well. I also use it as an instructor, as Corey mentioned, so that students, I can show them how, step by step. And they can watch the video at their own leisure. They can pause, take notes. And so YouTube is very helpful. I use newspaper articles, magazine articles. I recently learned last Friday in OA's conference, I was in an engagement session. So shout out to folks that did the engagement session last Friday. And they mentioned choice boards. And so now I've taken that information in my Google Classroom and I put about 5 different choices for my HSE students to work on certain skills and activities. So I made it into a choice board so that they can take ownership and decide what they want to do. I also use Flipgrid, which is like a video recording. So yeah, so they get to record their response so that it's not always typing, it's not always chatting, or if you just want to kind of be able to give your perspective, then you can create a 1 to 2 minute video, and then I am allowed to give a video response and immediate feedback. So I love Flipgrid for that. Also, I use Soft Chalk where I can design like word searches or word puzzles, drag and drops, those skills that they're going to need when they're taking the GED test. Recently, we've been doing the Hate You Give, a chapter book, looking at that. We do, which I couldn't figure out because of the pandemic, how can all of my students get a copy of this text? So what I did is I just found a YouTube video with someone that's actually reading it. And she's very animated. And so that's kind of how we read on YouTube, or we read a chapter book. And I also just put up the transcript so that students can still read and follow along. In terms of curriculum, I use the Ready to Learn Mockingbird curriculum. Again, all of the Google platforms, Google Sheets I love because it's live. And so when I want students to compare and contrast the characteristics of a protest, for example, versus a riot, then they're all at the same time typing on one document and I can see their responses. So I really like to use that a lot. I also use Kahoot, game-based, Essential Ed, Edmentum. Newsela has the activities where they can write, where students can write and also take a quiz. So my HSE students really like that because it exposes them again to those question types that are going to be on the GED test. Next slide, please. And while Alana's going to the next slide, I saw in the chat that someone said, oh, my students are having a hard time really engaging with Flipgrid. I want to encourage you to show them how to use those filters that are there. Like my students, they can blur their face out because usually that's the issue. They don't really want to be seen. So they can put a sticker, like a smiley face, over their actual face. So kind of go in and show them how to play with those filters so that they don't have to actually their faces don't have to be seen. So here, platforms to keep students engaged. My pleasure. You want to make sure that what you're teaching is relevant. So again, social justice is something I kind of implemented into my HSE sessions to keep students engaged with what's going on in the world. So relevancy. I use polling. similar to how we just had like our debate, how it just kind of went down in the chat room. That's a form of a poll. I also use WebEx where they allow us to actually create polls. And so it can be a quick poll, a yes or no response. It can be a poll where you ask a short question, a short response question. I use it for assessment. I use polling for engagement. I use chat a lot. Some of my students are shy, they don't want to talk, so they chat. We do research quest. So if I give a quote, to be or not to be, that is the question. And then I'll say that was written by Shakespeare. Someone quickly go and research who the heck is Shakespeare. And then I want you all to put in the chat, who is it? What did you find? And so I'll give a quick 5 or 10 minute time frame for them to go and research who is who is this person that wrote the quote? Why do you think they wrote it? So that keeps them engaged. Game-based learning, again, like Kahoot. Also, I find really cool, really free online games for pretty much any content area. You can just search it online. And then project-based learning is giving my HSE students, I want to give them autonomy. I want to give them time to kind of be in charge of their own learning in a sense, to kind of take the wheel. So I provide the scaffolding, I provide the bones, the structure, and then I allow for them to go and put in the meat, if you will, for content, because then they're engaging with the actual content on a higher level. So it provides more rigor. Next slide, please. Thanks, I will do. I saw that in the chat. Awesome. So here, this slide just kind of talks about how I humanize this whole virtual world. Again, I record sessions. I use how-to videos of myself to show students how to navigate different portals, different systems, different websites. The class assignments are always shared ahead of time, or I might say, hey, check out this on your choice board, because I think this will really fit your goals and your learning needs. I always have my video on so that we can just kind of be a little more humanized. I'm always accessible to my students. The whole purpose of, again, the HSE sessions and how it's receptible to my students is it provides the extra support that they need. It's always small groups, so I always have at the max 3 students at a time. Oftentimes it's one-on-one, or just maybe myself and 2 other students. I'm able to target instruction based on their assessment data. I'm able to help them set goals based on what they need to know to pass the GED test. Even if it's a foundational skill. Ultimately, it's to prepare them to take and pass the test. Last but not least, I can provide targeted, customized instruction to students. And so, again, they like that. They're not fighting for my attention in a multi-level classroom where I have some students that may take them longer to learn the content than it would my HSE student. So here I can really tailor make, custom make instruction and design it for in such a way that's going to make learning more effective for my HSE students. Next slide, please. So myself and the team would like to first thank everyone for participating today, and we'd like to thank everyone also working very hard and diligently behind the scenes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it looks like we have about 5 minutes for any questions that you all may have.
Hi, this is Daryl. A question, I think it probably went by quickly in the chat, but I love the idea of doing like short online searches. Do you talk about evaluating the quality of the sites and what makes a good site to support your argument versus one that's a little sketchy? For example, you can go to Johns Hopkins to get good medical information, but you can't go to Clyde's favorite pills. That's not a credible aside. So is that something that you discuss?
That is something that has to be taught to our students, because many of them wouldn't know that. They wouldn't know credibility. So I teach it through ethos, pathos, logos. That's how I teach credibility. But you're absolutely right. That's a great point. Thank you for raising that question, because our students don't always know what is credible. And so for me, what I can appreciate is that it's always a learning opportunity. So even if a student comes with some information that is not credible, if you will, then it brings dialogue to the group, and then there's that debate again. And so I am a person that loves multiple perspectives. And so I just make it a teachable moment if it does happen.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Excellent session, by the way.
Thank you. Thanks. Any of my colleagues want to add to anything while we have a few? We have about 3 minutes. So I see in the chat, someone asked if we could share the slides. So this should be inside of the conference portal, along with our handout that has our curriculum.
One of the things I would like to share, thank you, Latanya and Corey and Megan. It's just been really great working with each of these instructors. And one of the things I want to share is that when we first started this, we started this because we were looking at the remote world, but we're beginning to find out, even when we get back into the classroom, we've always been looking at a way that we can really help our high-level students. So I believe that this is something that our program is probably going to keep doing. In addition, now, once we were called Ohio Aspire, around July or August, Tri-C merged us with adult diploma, and now our name, Ohio Options. So one of the things we're excited about is not only using the HSE Sessions concept with students who are working on their high school equivalency, but we're looking in the future to possibly adding on the adult diploma session, where we would give the students who are taking the adult diploma pathway the option of coming to a session to work on those areas that would help them.
I'd like to piggyback on what Lana just mentioned. I didn't go to school to learn how to teach to a camera, but I have really enjoyed all of the great opportunities to learn how to use technology and to have our students learn, and technology is not a scary thing, that there's a lot of great resources out there and ways to learn, and it's just opened a lot of opportunities and doors for our students and myself as a teacher. So trying to stay positive and making something good come out of this challenging pandemic that we're in.
Did we get any questions, Latanya, that was in the chat box? Did we cover those? Okay.
Yeah, I think you guys got to most of the questions.
Well,
There were a couple of other resources shared. There was a New York Times link that has charts and graphs that you can use in class. So that sounds really cool. And then someone recommended iCivics, I believe, is another resource.
Yeah, iCivics has a lot of different games to play. It also has a debate game, so that might be something, Tanya, you want to check out. It's kind of nice, and it's got a writing tool as well. So I don't know, it's got some neat features in it.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Please be safe and well for you and your families. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you all for presenting. This is a great session.
Fantastic session.
Thank you.
Thank you.